Okay, now to get started on our first step in assembling these shorts. I have my two backs here cut out. I've already transferred all my markings, notches, and all of that stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and take off my pattern piece so that that was left on there so I knew what piece it was. Now, one of the main things with the fabric, you always want to make sure you match right sides together. This fabric, though, looks the same on both the front and the back sides of it, so there's no distinct front or back. So it is very easy to get confused and make two left legs if you're not careful. But one of the easiest ways that I find that I can keep track of these sorts of things is that if this is the side that I've placed my marking on, then I'm going to call that the inside of my shorts. So the other side are going to be my right sides to sew together. And then to be sure that I have a left leg and a right leg, I'm going to go ahead and lay it out, open up my two backs. So here is my other leg, right leg, left leg. Now I'm going to take my front pieces. Right here again, all notches have been clipped, marks have been transferred. And then set that pattern piece aside. Save your pattern pieces if you ever want to make these shorts again. Now the seam we're going to set up to stitch first is the inseam. That's the inside leg seam. And if this is the side that my markings are on, then this will be my right side and right sides together. So one front matched up to one back to make my inside leg seam here. Now, as you'll see once I lay this on here, the crotch seam, the curved seam here, will not match front and back. That is very specific. They do not match. We usually have more body space around our derriere, so that's why that curve is cut deeper and longer. So to make sure that I have one of each of these, I'm going to lay them out so that I have opposites, my front on top and then down this side. Now we sew with all your excess fabric to the left of the needle and our seam allowance to the right of the needle. This one is laid out ready to be pinned. This one, once I've got the two matched up, I pick the two up and flip them over. Get them back in frame. There we go. And now I've got my seam allowance to the right hand side, my shorts excess fabric to the left, and with these flipped over now you can see the back is on the front, or back is on the top of the stacking order with its longer curve. So remember, the curves will not match. They are not meant to. Now we will stitch these with a regular 5/8 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and a 2.5 stitch length. Once you have done that, you can do an edge finish. You can go ahead and finish these two edges together if you'd like. You can do that with the zigzag or the F stitch on your machine. If you have a serger, you can run a serged edge down that raw edge. Okay, I have now stitched my inseam and finished off my raw edge. I have a serger, so I went ahead and did that. Remember, you can use a zigzag stitch or the F stitch on your sewing machine. Now, to get ready to sew my curved crotch seam here, I want to lay my pattern or my fabric pieces out just like you see in your picture in your set of instructions. Okay, you may be looking at it online, but I have my back piece here, my front piece here. And I can tell the front piece because of the two dots markings right up here. We're going to not stitch closed right in between those, and that allows the drawstring to come out the front of the shorts. All right, so I set one piece on the table right side up, meaning I do not see my seam allowance. Now then, the next piece to sew the other leg on here goes right on top of that, lining up my raw edges. Now that I'm matching up my fronts to my front for my center front seam and back to back, now my curve should match. If your curve does not match, then it means you sewed 2 left legs or 2 right legs. You didn't have 1 right and 1 left of the back, and same with the front. So that is a common mistake some new sewers make, and believe me, I've been sewing a long time, and I sometimes can get distracted and make the same mistake. Now, I want to make sure that my raw edges are aligned. I'm going to go ahead and pin them in place to be able to go back over to the sewing machine and stitch again. Get a few of them in here. Now, I'm pinning them. I like to pin this direction, in the direction I would be sewing at the head of my pin, at the point of the pin. That way, as I come stitching along, I can just slide my pin out of the way. If I put my pins in this direction, I would sew up to the ball of the pin, and it'd be up against the needle, and I have no place to be able to get the pin out. Some people like to pin in this direction around. That's okay too. I find though if I do that, what happens is I will get a buildup and a little pucker and a lump right over a pin, as well as then it's sometimes easier to forget that a pin is there and you can stitch over it, and if you hit that with a needle, you can damage your machine by knocking it out of timing, or break the needle, and little pieces of needle can wind up hitting you in the face, and you don't really want that happening. Now, at these 2 marking points, I'm going to stitch up to 1, back stitch, stop. Remove it from the needle, come back in, put the needle over here, back stitch, and then finish out that little bit up here. There's no sewing in between those marks. Okay, so I'll just have to watch as I come up to them. Then, between my notches, and these notches also help you line up and match your curves and things. Okay, a double notch to the back, single notches on the front. I'm going to sew the first seam with 5/8 inch seam allowance, then between my notches, just in this lower area, a second row of stitching about 3/8 of an inch seam allowance from the edge. The reason being is that right through the crotch area, as we move about, that part on a garment can take a lot of stress, and so it's good to have some reinforcement stitching in there. Then I will edge finish the whole thing, stopping at the lower mark. That way I'm going to be able to press open these seams up here to be able to insert the drawstring in between those 2 markings. And then those raw edges I don't need to worry about finishing because they will be enclosed in the casing at the top waist, and you'll see as we get there to build that part of the shorts.